It's the Draftsmen Show.
I'm interested to hear what you're going to say about the metaphor thing. Can you make a case for it? Why is metaphor such an important thing? I haven't heard much about this.
First, let me ask you, when somebody talks about metaphor in composition, what do you think it means?
I'm thinking of literal metaphors, like a shape kind of looks like something else, and it's meant to look like that something else because it's sending a message about what the meaning is behind this painting.
Yeah. In storytelling, Robert McKee calls that symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
Symbolism is where one thing represents another. This rose symbolizes passion. That horizon symbolizes eternity. This egg symbolizes fertility. That can be done brilliantly, but it's not going to help students compose. It can turn them into pretentious university students who say, people just don't get how brilliant my work is and that everything means something else. But it can be done brilliantly. It's just that that's not where we dig for what this is about.
Okay, so why is it so important? You're saying it's one of the most important things about it. So can you make the case for it?
It's because when you look at a picture, you have an emotional response. If we're sensitive viewers, in particular, if we're good viewers, we look at it and we feel cheered up by it, or scared by it, or thoughtful about it. How does that happen? It obviously happens by the subject matter. If you have a beautiful face, you will have a different response than if you have a scary monster, but not necessarily. A person can compose that monster, which might be hideous, to make it quite amusing looking by the way they treat the flatness of it and the outlines and the bright colors and turn it into a cartoon. And we can have that very attractive face be terrifying because it's in a noir film where the light is coming through blinds that turn this person into slices of light and dark. And it's very disturbing. Composition is about getting an emotional response, and we get the emotional response at the most basic level with the abstract design, with it feels like blood. It feels like garbage. It feels like a lovely spring garden. And to treat your design as a waterfall doesn't do much good if you're designing a waterfall. But if you are designing a wedding dress and you treat it as a waterfall, then you are bringing the energy and emotional content of one thing into another thing, and there's something about that is basic to our emotional response, and it is something that every great musical composer, storyteller, sculptor, artist uses. Even if they don't know the definition of the word metaphor, every child uses it. That this is like this enough to where I'll treat this composition, I'll treat this picture as if it's an embryo, or as if it's a scorpion, or as if it is a drawer full of knives that I've pulled open and they go tangled all over the place, or as if it's a Japanese garden. But not if it is a Japanese garden. That's we're saying the one thing has a certain feeling, and I am going to arrange my elements by comparing the two. This is the blood of creative composition. This is how I have seen the students who take this seriously do the best work I've ever seen. And the students who never pay much attention to it or don't work on it, I don't know that we reach our level unless we really take it seriously. And here's the last thing I'll say about it. Here's what I mean by taking it seriously. Children do it instinctively. Many grown-ups stop doing it because they want it to be literal, measurable, quantifiable, able to conform to the golden section. But what about what you've got in nature? What about what you've got? All of these. The golden section is like a cracker compared to the feast that you can have of metaphor where you've got all sorts of things that you can pull from. And getting good at it means to take a year or 3 of consciously working to make comparisons. One exercise, it's only one, but one that is good, is to take your 20 or 30 or 40 favorite paintings of varying styles and liken them to meals. Liken them to dishes, whether they're desserts or whether they're appetizers or whether they're candy. Norman Rockwell's are kind of candy. But then you can get even more specific, and that is exercising the part of you that looks at one thing and sees it as another. How was that, Stan?
That was a great case for it. I'm actually kind of excited. I want to go study it. You got me motivated to go study composition with that.
Hey, here's where I'd start. I'd start with the book that I have a link to on my website. It's Molly Bang's book. There are many books on composition, and I read every one that I could read, and I got kind of tired of them. Some they've got good things in them, but there is one book, and it's the simplest book. Picture this by Molly Bang. In a half hour, she will point your head in the direction of all of this stuff I've been talking about. She does it really, really well in just the first half of the book of how she would illustrate Little Red Riding Hood with abstract shapes. I've talked about it before because I talk about it all the time. It's one of those must-read books so that rather than trudging through 40 hours of reading books on composition, start with Molly Bang, and she may ignite your creativity to where you don't need to study that many more books on composition because you're going to be off and running to see that you've got a lifetime ahead of you to invent your own.